Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today it's an exciting episode as we're finally putting parts back on the Mira. So in a previous episode I managed to degrease and paint the chassis parts, but there's something I need to do today so I can actually get on with putting it back together tomorrow. And it's actually down here, this hub assembly here. I just need to paint this arm, so when I put the new suspension on I don't have to worry about taking it back off again if I decide to paint it. So I've just used the brush and stippled a bit of black paint onto that area here where the shock absorber actually bolts on. So I don't actually have to worry about unbolting this section here. The rest of the hub assembly I can actually detail when I refresh the brakes. Okay, so the bits I painted yesterday are now dry. Only one thing left. Let's get this back together. So while the tank's back out, I was able to refresh these fuel lines here. I was a little bit worried about them being very old, and also I've replaced the clips. After all, once that's back in there, I'm gonna have to take it back out just to replace these hoses. So it was a good opportunity to do that. Okay, now it's a good time for me to replace this rusted brake line that I'm not really keen of, so I'm just going to replace it. But one thing that was going through my head is a little tip that you might need in the future. For instance, if you can't undo these brake unions, for a start, you're probably using the wrong spanner. I mean, this is just an ordinary spanner. You need a brake spanner. It looks a little bit like this end here with a cutout. You can slide it onto the pipe and undo it. But if that doesn't work, the answer is really simple. What you need to do is, this only applies if you actually are replacing the pipe, but what you need to do is just cut it off here and then get your 6-sided socket on there, and then you'll have enough leverage to undo the union. Let me show you. Okay, next up, when you're making your brake pipe and you need to measure it, use a piece of wire or some string that's not very stretchy, and you'll be able to lay it across that pipe, get the right measurement. Also, if you have cut the ends off, you need to allow for that, and also you need to allow a tiny bit at the end there just for the flare. So that's the new supplied union, there's the old one. What it's worth doing at this point is just check to make sure it fits nicely, and in this case it does not. So that is actually the incorrect union, and I don't want to use that. So I've just been out to the local tool shop to see if I can get some new unions for this brake pipe, but unfortunately they don't sell them. But I did manage to pick up a brake spanner, so I can actually show you what I mean about the cutout there to slip over the pipe. And it's got a 6-sided spanner bit in the middle there. So what I'm going to try and do is actually reuse the old unions on the brake pipe. The thing is, you can actually reuse these, but cleaning them up has removed the protective zinc coating on there. But I know that the threads are actually good on this, and they are steel, so they're not actually the parts that compress on the brake pipe. The actual part that compresses is the end where you put a flange on there and it crushes up on the inside of the brake pipe. So it should be okay to reuse these. So that's the flare that we've just put on this pipe using the tool. One thing I will mention at this point, make sure you put both your unions on. I have made pipes in the past and actually had forgotten to put the unions on. It sounds crazy, but it's easily done. So next up, we just need to bend the pipe so it's the same as the original. There are actually specialist tools out there that you can actually bend the pipe with. They look like a pair of grips and they have like a circular part, so they contour around the pipe, which is great. I don't actually have one, but I do have a specialist tool, and it's these. Okay, so that's the pipe made. It's a similar shape. Don't worry too much because you can actually tweak these. Incidentally, this pipe is very, very soft. So if you are bending it without using a special tool, be sure not to flatten parts of the pipe. Otherwise, it will be absolutely useless. Okay, so it's time to fit the rear shocks and springs, and something I was just going to mention is with this particular shock absorber set, it does actually come with new top mount bushes. Always a good idea to replace these because you don't want any knocking and banging after you fitted your new suspension. Another thing to mention, these particular shots are gas filled. you can get oil-filled shock absorbers as well. If you do find yourself fitting some, well, it's more to do with the oil-filled shocks. If you do find yourself fitting some of those, make sure you prime them first. It's pretty easy stuff, really. It's just the case of pushing the shock absorber up and down in the upright position to get rid of any air bubbles. So that's the painted springs refitted along with the new shock absorbers. It's actually looking quite smart. So I was going to go ahead and fit the exhaust back onto the car, but I did notice while I was removing it that there's a tiny hole here. I mean, to be honest, this thing is absolutely hammered. It's had such so many repairs on this back box. It's pretty unbelievable, actually. But I did look online. Nothing's available at the moment, so I don't know. Gonna have to think about this one. So at the start of this video, when I put the axle stands on there, the car was actually quite level, and you can see now it's not. It's slightly tilting to the right. I've actually done this on purpose. It turns out that all the weight is at the front, and as I was working on the back, the rear of the car was actually lifting off the stands. It was getting quite dangerous. So what I had to do is support the front and then lower the axle stands at the back. But doing so actually made the working space at the back quite small. Where I removed the drain plug from the fuel tank, it's always best to try and fit a new compression washer. So I'm still yet to refit the handbrake cables. I mean, these look in pretty good condition, so they can be used again. I would like to clean and paint this backing plate here, but as well as that, I'm still on the search for new brakes for the rear of this, so I'll see how I get on. But for the time being, I'm going to leave it there for today. So the Mira got some new parts, and I think that if this Mira could smile, it would be grinning ear to ear. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Cheers! So just in case you're wondering what magic formula I used to clean up all the nuts and bolts on the rear suspension before I refitted it, well, it's actually old petrol.